What's going on, everyone?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Letterman jacket.
Still gonna talk like Letterman. Girls
Coming at you live, once again, on both sides of the Mississippi. It's Tuck and Pat, both of us here, ready to make it work tonight. We got combine coverage, we got NFL news, we got retirements, and tonight we're gonna break down the defensive backs, man. It's been a show, man. I love the combine, I love Lamar Jackson, and I love what else is going on, man. It's gonna be fun. So without further ado, Tuck and Pat, the Letterman jacket. Tuck, what's going on tonight, buddy?
Well, I'm just happy to be here. I'm grateful that we get this platform because it's 2018 and anybody can really do anything they'd like to in the fascinating modern age we live in. So, Pat, I'm thankful for you to finally, kicking me in my rear end to make sure that this can happen, and I'm thankful to the listeners, whoever they may be, wherever they might be. Just thanking everybody, feeling good, feeling positive, and it's been a great weekend of combine coverage. We haven't quite been able to look at all the film just yet, so we're just going to cover some top line stories. Stay tuned later in the week when we get a chance to really cut up the film. And yeah, Pat, why don't we start off with some of the NFL headlines just around the whole league?
Well, we're not. I want to talk more combine today, as do you, because I know
Okay.
you've been going hard on film. But just to touch off, Jonathan Stewart, all time. I believe he's the all-time leading rusher of the Carolina Panthers, getting released.
Mm.
A little nervous for it. They obviously Christian McCaffrey's he's a tiny guy, but and Cam Newton he's a big guy, but John Stewart does a decent job of kind of keeping things going. He's I don't know why you would release him without anyone else to kind of fill the gap. Opinions on that, Tuck?
Well, I feel like Jonathan Stewart, and please fill my information in, but I know that at the end of last year there was a clause in his contract where if he became was voted an All-Pro, not to the Pro Bowl, but an All-Pro, his contract was extended, and therefore, at the end of that contract is going to be a greater number against the cap, and so they probably felt like with Christian McCaffrey, his versatility, they've had bodies in that backfield going back to the Fozzie Whitaker plus-esque days. So, I think Jay Stu really should get a contract somewhere else, but I'm not sure that he will, or he won't at least get the contract that he wants in terms of the dollar amount. And I'm a big Christian McCaffrey guy. I mean, I was so happy that he went, whatever it was, 7, 8, but top 10. And, it's going to look a little bit different down there in Carolina from what we've seen for a long, long time. I've been a big supporter of Jonathan Stewart since he was an Oregon Duck. Hopefully, maybe he winds up on one of the franchises I like to follow. I'm a diehard Jets fan, but I love just the NFL as a whole, and hopefully Jonathan Stewart continues to play a pivotal role next season.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Jets because they recently signed a plus 30 running back, and now they have another plus 30 running back on the market. So you think they pick up Jonathan Stewart to replace the retired Matt Forte?
Um, that's actually not a bad connection. A lot of people might not, think that Jonathan Stewart could fill the same role that Matt Forte would, and it's really more basic than that. Bilal Powell, is to me he's an every down type of back, but he's not a guy that you hand the rock to 35 times a game. So if they just went ahead and sign somebody like Jonathan Stewart for that first, second down role, I mean, it'd be very much like the Sean Green, LaDainian Tomlinson days. I'm not saying these two players are the similar type of players, but I'm saying that they can fill the needs that a team needs. A big bruiser back, carry the rock maybe 20 times a game, have Bilal Powell come in for 15 times a game for that change of pace, for those, passing downs, things of that nature. And honestly, I mean, I think with Bilal Powell as somebody already under contract, you really couldn't do anything wrong. And so if you brought somebody in like Jonathan Stewart, then you're really, swimming in gravy. So I would totally support that decision. But again, as long as I see him somewhere where he gets integral snaps and a meaningful number of snaps, then I'll be happy as a fan.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with bringing him in, and especially on these 1-year prove it deals. I think that'd be a solid move. We can even look at. I don't know, maybe you bring him to Denver. You can bring him anywhere. He's a pro. He's not going to cause a hassle. Shared the backfield with D'Angelo Williams for all those years. Also shared the backfield with obviously Christian McCaffrey this year. So I'm not really worried about John Stewart splitting reps. So also a big move. 18 kids. Antonio Cromartie retires today. Thoughts on that? I'm more worried about how he feeds his family.
Well, one point I do want to make that I feel like it's overlooked about Antonio Cromartie and that whole number of children thing. Like the real story behind that is the producers at HBO. You know, when they first did that take, Antonio Cromartie said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they said, "Hey, could you slow that down a bit? You know, maybe some multisyllabic names in there." And so they wanted him to kind of slow the pace, and so I think that kind of threw him off. But that's been a funny shtick for years. I'm not worried about Antonio Cromartie feeding his entire family because he has been in the league for so long. Um, I'm sure that he figured some things out, and he kind of got some plus year Jets. I thought, when he went back with the Cardinals there, that was kind of a plus year, and everything since then has been a plus year. So I'll be sad to see him go just because he was a physical specimen. He could do so many things for a number of different franchises. But Pat, I just wish Antonio Cromartie all the best.
Yeah, I definitely think very underrated. Believe it or not, um,
Hmm.
we could definitely talk about how much pressure it is to play across from Revis all those years because you're not throwing to Revis, you're throwing to Cromartie, and he still did a decent job of taking care of himself. So definitely want to appreciate his length in the league. Played on the Cardinals, obviously, did pretty well there. Played San Diego Chargers, I think a Pro Bowl or two. I know he had 10 interceptions in like '07 or '08 when he was there. Um, and also playing for the Jets, coming back. I think he played for the Colts his last year. But either way, appreciate his career. I think that can kind of segue into who we were talking about off air. We were talking a lot about defensive backs, Tuck, and
Of course.
let's Minka Fitzpatrick, man. Some may say he had a little bit of a down combine. Some may say that he did exactly what he needed to do. Numbers are great, but when you watch the film, I think everyone's saying he's the safest pick in the draft. Thoughts, opinions, comments, concerns, go.
Well, I really don't have any concerns when it comes to Minka Fitzpatrick, despite my um, history as a Jets fan with Alabama DBs. I do know for a fact that they're at least well coached and well trained. Dion said this a lot on the broadcast today. Was that Nick Saban? He is a defensive backs coach at heart. So that these kids, they have the quality training. Minka Fitzpatrick, he was unlike some of these other Alabama DBs that haven't panned out in the pros because what he put up on tape and the numbers that he put up in the level of competition at the greatest stages of games with the college football playoff, all that being considered, I think the tape speaks for itself. He's clearly, the one top. If he's not the top guy on your board for defensive back, he's the second. And I think he did everything he needed to do to back up all those judgments. I think they're all now valid more than they are void. So I think Minka Fitzpatrick, honestly, I think he's the best person on the board, more so than maybe some of his counterparts in the college football playoff. But I think he's going to be a solid pick for whoever takes him. I don't necessarily want my Jets to take him, but because they've got some other needs, I think. But what are your takes on Minka Fitzpatrick and maybe not so much the combine, but just him as a player as a whole?
Well, something that I always like to hear when they bring up Minka Fitzpatrick is Saban put him in the spot when he was a freshman. Like he was making calls as a freshman.
Mm,
So to me, that's thoroughly impressive. The fact that
right.
it was him, like Nick Saban, University of Alabama, 17, 18, 19 years old, making calls. So to hear that, that means his football IQ is huge. So maybe
Hmm.
if he is a 0.2 seconds slower or whatever it is, he can make up for it because he can read the plays, he can read the tight ends, he can do all this stuff. He can come up in the box when certain formation. So I think that's a pretty big deal that gets overlooked a lot of times. And I'd like to see the Browns take him at number 4. Uh,
Okay.
especially if they don't take a quarterback. Well, I mean, if they don't pick up Cousins or a quarterback, um, I think he'd be a great pickup at 4. But we'll see. We'll see. Cleveland's pretty good at messing things up. Uh, if personally that I feel that, and maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, that Rosen will go to the. I think Rosen will go to the Giants, and then they'll pick up Barkley at number 3 with the Colts. So I think he falls right into their lap at number 4 for the Browns. But I can't wait
Okay,
for the
cool.
draft, man. I there's gonna be a trade, and it's gonna ruin everyone's life, and I can't wait for it to be ruined.
Yeah, I mean, like I've mentioned before, Pat is, I would say, as good as they come to mock drafting because in terms of mock drafting, not really drafting. Obviously, nobody here is a GM, but in terms of the talking heads out there in the media, and it's all speculation, no matter what, no matter how much you get paid or who you work for. I think Pat's as good as they come personally. But and so I'll definitely be taking some notes on what we're talking about this episode, but we're going to be talking about that a lot more in depth moving forward. Like I said, we haven't had a chance to cut up the combine tape. Pro days are still to come. Free agency is not even official yet. Um, so we'll look very much forward to that. Hopefully, before the draft, we'll be able to get some video up and maybe remotely do a mock draft and do something like that. So stay tuned. But in terms of some of the other top defensive backs, we like because Pat, I just think a trade's a given. It's going to happen. It's going to mess up the boards just like you said. So let's stick to the talent here and um, a guy that a lot of our friends have been talking about is this guy named Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. So obviously he's kind of that other guy that I was referencing in terms of the top 2 guys. People were really impressed with his, I think it was a 4.42 40, which again,
4.32.
4.3. Oh wow, so that's a lot more impressive,
Yep.
obviously. Um, so thanks, Pat, for correcting me yet again. Um, so 4.32 is extremely impressive. I'm not necessarily concerned with straight line speed when it comes to a defensive back because how often are they doing that unless they're running a pick six back to the house? But um, you know, the Ohio State University is a football factory, and every single authority on football will tell you that. Again, maybe it's my Jets fan bias. I don't necessarily love drafting from Ohio State just because it hasn't worked out for us in the past. I know, and I just think, Ohio State and a lot of Big Ten schools, I mean, like they kind of have their brand, right? So Ohio State, is really good for defensive players. I've maybe never personally gotten over the Vernon Gholston pick, because he was the background on my computer in high school for a little while before I changed it to Danny Woodhead. But but Denzel Ward, clearly he's a quick guy. Clearly he's got great tape, in big games. Can you give me a little more insight on him, Pat?
Well, his combine numbers solidified his first round status. He 39-inch vertical, 11.4 broad jump, and running that 4.32. Um, People have a really they love Ohio State players. They might get a little bit more stock. They're churning out good players over the years. Obviously, Eli Apple when he was the most recent one that really
Right.
is terrible. But I think his comes from more of not a skill set, maybe a mommy and daddy set. But I
Well, if I
just
could interject, well, okay, I'm
go
really
for
sorry
it.
to
Go
cut you
for it.
off, but I think it's for me Ohio State's inside out. They got offensive linemen, they got defensive linemen. I don't really trust their defensive backfield as much. So what were
Well,
you going to say more about Denzel
well,
Ward?
I was gonna say Marcus Lattimore and Bradley Roby disagree with you.
Okay,
Two
that's
guys,
completely
came
valid.
out.
Yep.
In the end, it comes down to the player. Schools are great, but we saw Big Ben out of the University of Miami of Ohio do terrible, while Matt Leinart, Jamarcus Russell playing in bigger conferences couldn't translate their success. Uh, I consider him the number 2, really,
Right.
the number 2 safety or defensive back.
Okay.
Um, I I really don't know what's the best fit for him as far as team, but we'll see. We will honestly see. I'm getting a report, if I can look it up, that the Seahawks are looking at getting rid of Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. So there's always the possibility maybe Oh, excuse me. They're planning on trading Michael Bennett, keeping Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. I know he just redid, but he's also hurt. They're not sure if he's going to play.
Right.
I think, especially a team like Seattle, maybe they trade up to pick him if they need to.
No,
They're starting to get old. They're not that young team.
well,
Earl
Earl
Thomas.
Thomas to me is like one of the great ones. I mean, like he comes from DBU. He was built to play safety. He was born to play safety. Cam Chancellor is kind of the new hybrid prototype in terms of just a big guy. But Denzel Ward's numbers, they scream good enough to move around to me. And obviously, I don't think Michael Bennett has produced enough on the field to really warrant much of a how should I say this, big paycheck or I really don't think Michael Bennett's the same guy, the same player that he used to be. And I don't want to talk about his off the field stuff at all. It's not worth it. So Denzel Ward obviously would be a good way to get some lifeblood back into that Seattle secondary and maybe hope to bring the Legion of Boom a little bit back. Because that's where they're strong and that's where you gotta kind of play to your strengths a little bit sometimes. We know that football you have to plug and play and get the best player for your need is how teams generally approach their draft board. It's not strictly need, it's not strictly best player available, it's some combination thereof. But another defensive back, a guy that maybe teams have yet to decide where he's going to play for them is a guy named Derwin James out of Florida State. I know that just in the brief amount of time I was able to catch some of the NFL Network coverage today, Deion Sanders was saying he doesn't like the comparison to Jalen Ramsey strictly because the only comparison is where are they going to play. The storyline on Jalen Ramsey, a little bit more media than in-house, was is he going to play safety? Is he going to play corner? Deion said anybody that was in football knew Jalen Ramsey was a corner. And so there's that same kind of storyline around this kid from Florida State. And so, but I think he's more of a safety. I think that's what Deion said. And just kind of his physical measurables allude to that. And I believe Derwin James either was in first or second in the broad jump. So I think he was either 11 foot 4 inches or 11 foot 2 inches, one way or the other. So clearly this kid's an athlete. He's going to be able to. He's an explosive athlete at that, and he's going to be able to help your team. Come the start of next season. But do you have any particular nuggets on Derwin James?
Running that 4.47, a little
Okay.
bit not terrible, not the best, but still, obviously, maybe that kind of wants you to put him uh, as a safety. It's not terrible, but it just depends on the coach, really. 6'2", 215, measurable, very
Oh
similar.
wow.
Yeah, big boy. I think Ramsey's around there. I know he's at least like 6'1", 6'2".
Right, but talking about Cam Chancellor, I mean, boy.
Yeah, it just depends. I don't see I don't see you losing with Mika Fitzpatrick. I don't see you losing with Derwin James. Denzel Ward, I don't like when players sit out the bowl games because it means they kind of quit on me. That's what Denzel Ward did. He sat out the Cotton Bowl. Uh,
Right.
um,
He invested in himself more than the team for sure.
yeah, and it's just that's it. Skills wise, I think he's there, but maybe there's an attitude thing that I don't like. I think these three guys, man, they all solidified themselves as first round status. People might say that Mika Fitzpatrick still had uh not the best combine, but in that same light, a lot of these teams are in love with him, and that's all that really matters. I think he'll produce on the field no matter what, but like I really don't see any of those guys really dropping. But I cannot stress, man. I cannot stress like that number 4, that second Browns pick, man. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about what team's going to trade up.
Right.
Because if the Vikings don't get any of their quarterbacks, they have to trade up and pick someone.
Right. Well, I mean, and I want to let this stew for you because again, you've actually predicted a trade or two in the last 10 years, which is not even something that the experts even attempt to do. So, I mean, sometimes they might comment on it based on a need, based on like a Patriots are always like they never really need anybody in the first round. So, oh, if XYZ team comes and trades up for the Patriots in the back of the first round, then yeah, it's good. But you know what? I want to let you, brew on that a little bit more. And before we get to the next player that I really want to discuss in depth and in detail, I'd like for Pat to give us just a little bit more information on our sole sponsor this evening and the reason why we're able to bring the Letterman jacket to the masses at all. Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit more about them?
Well, we got Kilo Charlie Clothing, guys. Kilo Charlie Clothing is a veteran apparel company. They are making some pretty awesome shirts. They make some pretty funny skits. Um, Overall, good cause of supporting veterans. We'll tag them in the links. We've been putting it up there. We really appreciate them helping us out. Taking care of the podcast and whatnot. So it's pretty awesome, man. Guys, check them out on Facebook at facebook.com/Kilo Charlie Clothing. Also, www.kilocharlieclothing.com is their website. Use DM them on the social media platform of Facebook. Tell them that you would listen to the Leatherman Jacket podcast, and they will give you a shirt for half off. So there's half off shirts if you DM. So there's that.
Letterman jacket in the DMs. Slide into Kilo Charlie Clothing. I personally wear one of their shirts, their Operator shirt, Operator. I'm not, and I'm not making a political statement one way or the other when I say that. It's just a quality, comfortable T-shirt. The design is a little cool. It might be a conversation starter. So really, if you want to, help out, if you like buying American, if that makes you feel good on the inside, their prices are very reasonable and their quality is outstanding. So thank you to Kilo Charlie Clothing, and off the dovetail of a very, very in the American grain product, I want to talk a little bit about a safety, and not just any safety, a safety from a school that my friend Pat has been following for over a decade, the Pennsylvania State University. Pat, who am I talking about?
Talking about Tony Apke, man, and not only were we surprised to see how fast he ran, Primetime was surprised to see how fast he ran. So definitely, if you're turning heads in Prime's noticing, you're doing something right, man, because he was not believing that, and he had to bite his tongue. And the great Prime, Deion Sandcastle, was that what his name was? On something like that?
Commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he was definitely, as Mike Mayock said, I believe verbatim, time to go back to the tape for this guy.
Oh, yeah. Mike Mayock said every coach in the league is going to go back and pull up all the tape on this kid because he's the kind of guy where, he played at a Power 5 program. He played at one of the most notorious, or not notorious, but one of the most famous programs in all the lands in Penn State. Everybody knows that program. Everybody, and they're going to be, and now, they're not to be successful as they used to be, but they're playing Ohio State. They're playing Michigan. They're playing, Big Ten football. And wait, correct me on the first name. I have down Troy. Is it Troy or Tony?
Oh, I thought it was Tony. Oh God, yeah, it's Troy. Excuse me, it's Troy.
Oh, excuse me. All right, so Troy, which I like even better than Tony. I mean, Tony's great and all, but Troy Apke, sounds like a safety I want on my team. And the reason why Deion and Mayock were so impressed is a 4.34 official 40-yard dash. Now, that's flying around, if you ask me. He can get his hat to the football, and we definitely support players. How should we say this delicately? In the ethnic minority of American football.
I'm waiting for these Pakistani kickers to come out, man.
Well, right. I mean, I really support Roberto and Ricky Aguayo too. I want them to do well. I like Cairo Santos, don't we? But
Yeah.
but right. I mean, Troy Apke. I mean, again, I haven't seen much film on him. When I watched Penn State, I saw that big 6'8" tight end mostly when I was watching their games. So did you see a little bit more of their film? I know you've been in and out of country and and all over the place. But did you see Apke play a little bit?
To be honest, they've had some pretty good safeties over the years. Anthony, I can't even say his name. Anthony Scarito, um, Mark Rubin, Justin King. Guys like that. But none of them have really wowed me. Drew Asterini, I can't even say these names, man. They're Asterini. They're all Italian, man. They're all like these old Italian guys. Um, it's not only his speed, man. He also like jumped. I believe I got the numbers right here, but he jumped over I think 11 feet on the broad jump.
Well, I think pre-broadcast you were telling me what was he like somewhere in that 39 to 41 inch
Yeah,
vertical?
he had a 41-inch vertical, man,
Boy, yeah,
and he's 6'1", 200 pounds. Like it's like you said, this guy jumped himself into the mid round easily, just off special teams
right.
alone.
I
Because
mean,
now you
just
have
off those numbers, yeah,
Yeah, because now you have a guy who can be a special teams contributor for 4 years when you sign him to that rookie contract.
right,
Like there you go, it's done. It's done. Like that is one thing you don't have to worry about. Because not only can you put him on the inside on your punt teams, now he's fast enough to be a gunner on the outside. I want to see him in pads, and I want to see how he can shake the blocks on the punts now. Because that's what I'm
right.
doing if I'm a coach. If I'm any special teams coach, I have a keen eye for this guy right now.
I mean, if you were Mike Westhoff, what would you do?
I'd put him in pads and see how he can work as a gunner on punt,
Okay,
and
all
then
right. Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and
I'd make
if
sure he was on every team except field goal.
well, I mean, he's a guy that, like you said, I mean, if you draft him, he's not a guy that's going to go undrafted, so you're not going to pick him up that way. So you're going to have to use a pick on him. And like just these numbers alone, and the fact that he's got minutes and film at Penn State, he's not a sixth and seventh round guy. He's a third, fourth, fifth round guy. I mean, third might be a little um, kind of a need pick more than anything, but in any case, like you were saying, let's just get this kid on the roster, get him. We don't even necessarily have to give him a spot on the 53. We can make him earn it in those 4 or 5 weeks of training camp. He reminds me a lot of that kid from a number of years ago on Hard Knocks with the Bengals. He was a safety. He had quick feet, but I don't think he played much special teams, and I think that probably hurt him.
It was Corey
Um,
Lynch. Corey Lynch, right?
I don't remember his name at
Yeah,
all. That would
it
be
would be.
funny.
There was two guys. There was Corey Lynch, who's famous for blocking that punt against Michigan. He played at
Okay.
App State, and
Oh,
Joe.
okay.
Yeah, and then there was Joe Nelson, who I think his claim. I don't even think he really did anything special, but I know both of them played in the league for like 3 or 4 years. Did the average NFL time, but yeah, Corey Lynch had some time. Actually, got meaningful snaps with the Buccaneers in like the early
Okay.
2010s.
Right, and so the guy I'm thinking of, like he like just the only reason I know this is from the Hard Knock storyline, and I don't think he made it out of that camp. So I think he must have gone somewhere else. But a kid like this, like you're not going to worry about that. Like Hard Knocks, like HBO or whoever, now with the Amazon Prime All or Nothing, and which is great. The first one especially, if you haven't checked out the Cardinals All or Nothing, go do that like as soon as you finish watching Combine film. Um, but where I was going with this is Troy Apke is a kid that you can have on your team, have on your squad. He's probably going to outperform your third string safety. He's probably going to outperform your second string safety, and he's going to bring all these intangibles like Coach Pat is saying on special teams. And like my one of my favorite all time players, DeAnthony Thomas, tweets out every single year, special players make plays on teams. So and like the Hard Knocks coaches say, like hey, how are you going to make this team? One, two, and three. Special teams, special teams, special teams. Okay, it doesn't get enough love. No matter how much love it ever gets, special teams will never get enough love. So, with the final third of the show, we should probably stop talking about Troy Apke, even though I would like to speak about him for the next 15 minutes. So do you have some other broad stroke headlines, NFL headlines for us, Pat?
Um, Maybe not so much NFL. Still staying on the combine was Lamar Jackson's decision not to
Okay,
run the 40.
right.
Do I think Lamar Jackson's going to be a successful NFL quarterback? No, I don't. Do I
I
think
disagree with you.
Oh, that's fine. But do you disagree that he should run the 40 as well?
I think anybody should run the 40. I mean, because if you get hurt run the 40, that says more about you than it does about anything else. And if you're Lamar Jackson, like I get it. You may have more to lose than you have to gain. If he goes out there and he runs a 4.3, great. Everybody knew he was fast. If he goes out there and he runs a 4.6, wow, that's a bad thing. Mariota ran a 4.5, 4.45, whatever it was. So, he's really probably just trying to keep his unique niche identity. Why I like him is that when he stands there in the pocket, he actually holds the ball with two hands close to his chin, like Peyton would or something like that. Like so many of these other quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that they say have technical problems, don't do things like that. So I just like when I see him play. I don't think he takes off too early. I think he takes off at the right time. I think the level of talent around him has probably prepared him better for the next level than anything else. Considering the numbers that he put up not only last year but this year as well. But along those same lines, and if you have more to say about Lamar Jackson, please interject. But I think Sam Darnold also made a curious yet Tuck approved decision. So Tuck's take would be that Sam Darnold's decision not to throw at the combine was a good one. I mean, Mayock disagrees with me, and Mayock knows a heck of a lot more about football than me. Um, I mean, I get it. I mean, the logic is written on the wall. You don't know these kids. You never practice with these kids. And Mayock alluded to that. Mayock said, it's not a completion percentage test out there. It's not you got to throw 40 for 40. That's what your pro day is. Your pro day, you got to throw 40 for 40. And if you don't throw 40 for 40 as your pro day, then you're really looking bad. But I mean, as a Jets fan, I know how much Mark Sanchez improved his stock with his pro day throwing. And not to say that has anything to do with the combine throwing, but Sam Darnold, I think Sam Darnold, he's at the top of the mountain, right? And it's harder to sit at the top of the mountain than it is to be the tiger that's trying to get to the top of the mountain. So, because everybody's fighting that same fight when you're trying to get to the top. Once you're at the top, then you got to fight them all off. And Sam Darnold, I think, is listening to his team well, his people well. He's being managed well. He must have a great agent. I don't know who it is, but I think Darnold's just playing his cards close to the vest and keeping one up his sleeve and just playing them well.
Yeah. Well, even look at Manziel when he threw with pads on, I believe, in 2014. That definitely helped his draft stock a
Right.
decent
Oh
amount.
yeah.
Um, Something Coward was talking about today, which actually really struck my interest, was Josh Rosen. Everyone talks about, is it going to be Darnold? Is it going to be Allen? Is it going to be Baker Mayfield number one?
Oh
And
god.
everyone's pretty confident with Josh Rosen being number two. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I found that to be a curious storyline as well. I mean, I'm glad that there is kind of um, a validation of my curiosity in that, why does everybody think Rosen to the Giants is such a great fit? I mean, look, I get it. The headline on Rosen is he's the most natural thrower of the ball, and he's going to require the least technical coaching to get to the next level and all this stuff. To me, he's a skinny kid. I think he's going to get hurt. But then again, I think everybody's going to get hurt. I think Mayfield's going to get hurt. I think all this crazy outsider stuff. But Rosen to the Giants seems like such a sure thing. It seems like every single mock draft that I see says Rosen to the Giants and Mayfield to the Jets, and there's really not too much outside of that. Now, why the Rosen to the Giants irks me more is because they have the number two pick. They can do whatever they want. And they've got so many question marks. Like the Jets, yeah, they have a lot of question marks, but they're at 6. So their cards are kind of going to be dealt to them. All right. The Giants have pretty much 51 cards in their deck. So I don't really understand why everybody's saying that they need to draft Eli's replacement. I get Eli's numbers were not good last year, and quite honestly, I don't blame Eli for that. Look at his offensive line; they're
could you
a
name
cast of
any of the
characters.
receivers he had outside of Sterling Shepard?
Well, Sterling Shepard wasn't even there most of the year. He got hurt. I mean, that kid can
I think
ball.
I think he missed like 6 games. Like,
I love.
and
See, that's my claim to fame as non-biased, right? I love Sterling Shepard. That kid can ball. But outside of that, I mean, now that you put me on the spot, I cannot remember them. No, I mean they were all single-digit guys. Like I think one of their last name was Rudolph. That's about it. I
yeah, it
mean,
was like Tavares King, Hunter Sharp, There was an Egan. I think his name was Evan Egan, not Evan Ingram. Evan Egan or
Right.
Travis Egan. Um, there was a Rudolph in there. It was disturbing. Like how could you? And he still had a
I mean, it was like a
plus.
preseason game out there for like the majority of the season. Like, remember when Victor Cruz got discovered against the Jets?
Yeah, yeah. It
And
was he had
like,
3 touchdowns. He didn't even play. That wasn't even the year he played either. He just had an awesome game the year
right, like
before.
everybody, yeah. I mean, the Giants. That I just remember like sitting in your living room here in New York, and like all of our friends, like either whoever was there was texting us, being like, "Ha, the Giants are so much better than the Jets." And I think the Jets went to the AFC Championship game that year. But regardless of any of that nonsense, the Giants have so many questions, to answer and so many holes to fix. And I don't think Josh Rosen fills anything for this year that you need. So why would you go that? Like, if you could take Saquon Barkley and literally take pressure off Eli instantaneously, like without even upgrading your offensive line, who again, I think Quentin Nelson should be a top 5, top 10 pick. I mean, he is going to be a top 10 pick. It's just, I think, I don't see why the Giants shouldn't take Barkley over Rosen. Like, I don't get it.
It just to them, it's probably like, are we with Saquon Barkley? Will we legitimately contend this year? One, two. Are we comfortable passing over Rosen or even Josh Allen would be good? 2 years behind Eli because Eli's got 2 more years on his contract. And despite all the trash he dealt with, playing 15 games, still threw for about 3,500 yards and 19 touchdowns with 13 interceptions with that
That's
motley
yeah.
crew.
Come on.
Like,
Wow.
yeah, like how do you do that to a guy? And
It's
Steve,
just I think it's the fans, and then it's such visceral reaction from the fans, and then such ability to capitalize on that from the media. I mean, New York media is more vicious than anywhere else, generally speaking. But I don't think Rosen's the right pick there. So what do you? I mean, do you have a better idea for the Giants? Like,
it comes down to how they feel. Does Pat Shermer think with Barkley is he going to win 10 games this year and contend for the playoffs? Because the NFC East is the tough division in the
oh
NFC
yeah,
again. Because you
oh
got
yeah.
Alex Smith going to the Redskins. Dallas is good. Um, I don't. Their offensive line is good. And they're going to have Zeke for 16 years. So no matter how good or bad you think Dak is, Zeke is still going to rush for 1,500 yards this year. Take that to the bank. 12 rushing touchdowns, and then all the bonus work you get in the passing game from him. Jason Witten will continue to put up his 60, 600. Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley over there, offensive line, and they're bringing back DeMarcus Lawrence. So that team's going to be tough. The Giants, with a healthy Odell, Brandon Marshall, Evan Ingram, uh, being a little bit older, more mature, plus Landon Collins and JPP. Their defense isn't terrible. It's not great, but they still have some
Oh, their
players
defense
there.
is where their money is put. So
Yeah,
I don't think they're really spending a lot more money on defense. And again, that's why people like draft picks is because it's not such a financial commitment. But we know what the Giants offer. We know what the Cowboys offer. Obviously, the Eagles are the incumbent champs, and the Skins. I think we love the fact that they have the best game manager in the last 2 decades. So, um,
yeah, the best
so
game manager who can air it out too. Let's not forget.
oh yeah, oh I mean, the game manager is a misnomer, but I mean that to me that just all screams ball control, control the clock, ball security. So I don't see how Saquon Barkley could hurt you. I don't think Saquon Barkley can hurt you at all if you take him, no matter what. And literally, there's like some of the stories on him coming out of Indianapolis were that like there were some scouts that said I have more concerns about my own future than I have about Saquon Barkley's future. Like I'm more worried that I'll get in trouble moving forward than Saquon Barkley will. So I think that the Giants really have some soul searching to do in terms of what their philosophy is going forward. Gettleman seems like a hard-nosed, tough grit kind of guy. None of that made sense, but you got it. And Pat Shermer, obviously, he's an offensive guy, so they're not going to take defense with all the money they have wrapped up. So at number two, it's really a quarterback they can develop and start as soon as Eli's ready to hang it up. I mean, it seems like they're trying so hard to get him to hang it up, but come on, you got to give the guy more credit and more what he's due than that. So I don't like Josh Allen in terms of a developmental project. I think he's kind of like the Cleveland Brown special. Um, and I think, Rosen, he might be the most ready to step in. So why would you take that guy? Why would you take that guy? And then why would you take like if Josh Allen is a project guy according to like strict purists, I wouldn't take him. So really it's just not making a lot of sense for me on my end. But then again, I don't. I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to the draft. Um, but 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 yeah, I mean, other than all this, I mean, I just don't. There's just I really need to watch more of this film because none of these storylines coming out of Indianapolis really made much of a change in my book. Oh, I do want to shout out Shaquem Griffin
Yeah,
from
we're
UCF.
gonna
Yeah.
when we get into linebackers, we're gonna talk about him a lot. Putting up
Okay.
20
20
repetitions,
solid. Yeah.
yeah, with one arm or one hand.
With one
But
hand and then another arm that was bionically attached or
yeah,
however you want
and
to put
he
it.
and he ran a 4.38. So
Yeah, oh my, he was the fastest linebacker when he went.
yeah,
When he ran his heat, that was the fastest time. So,
yeah.
um,
So
so he's just
there is talk about he did secondary drills. They had him in defensive back drills as well. So
yeah, his size. I think his size lends more to that big safety in the box. That however you want to call it.
well, they have this the gentleman, and we're getting ready to wrap it up, guys. But Dion Buchanan kind of
Right.
revolutionized that
Right.
safety. I'm gonna play up in the box. I'm gonna wear the number 20, but I'm a middle linebacker type of position.
Of course.
So it really comes down to that, and I can't wait to talk about him, man. But we're almost out
Yes.
of time, Tuck. Any signing off, man? Anything to sign off with?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody and thanks for bearing with us, as we continue to grow and all the little things that we've had to deal with that everybody has to deal with. But regardless of all that, we appreciate the love, we appreciate the feedback. Please send it in, negative or positive. It'll help us grow. So please send it in. Please hit subscribe because that's really the biggest metric that we can tell means that we are growing. And then other than that, yeah, just hit us up with any questions that you have. And thank you so much. I've been Tuck, and he's been Pat.
Yep, pretty much, guys. Once again, quick check out our sponsors, Kilo Charlie Clothing. Really good guys. Check out the podcast, and also don't be afraid to hit up our Patreon as well. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you in a couple days with our next episode. Till then, have a great one, guys.